I want to work on the radiator next, but there's a couple of things I want to point out in this that I've come across in other YouTube videos now. The first one is the fit of the filler cap for the radiator header. So this needs a fair bit of work. I've already shaved the back of it quite a bit and also scraped out the recess where it sits, but it does need a fair bit of filling and you want to maintain that circular shape, so that's going to take a bit of work. The other one is the radiator itself. So on the original release of the kit, the radiator had the wrong number of segments apparently. So if you contact Thunder Models, there's a specific part in their website you go to and they'll send you the correct 7-segment radiator, free of charge I believe. So my kit must have been a later release because it actually comes with the correct 7 segments. The radiator itself is beautifully moulded. The detail in there is very sharp and crisp. So what we'll do is I've cut out all the parts we need and we'll trim them up and get them assembled, and we'll see how I tackle the filling and shaping of this part here. So I've filled and cleaned up the header tank and filler joints here, and then after that I've glued up the rest of the frame so I can get it square, because it's very flimsy and there's very little contact points. So for the gaps, I initially used milliput to fill up the bulk of the gaps, and then cleaned up back and then filled it with sprue glue. So this side's cleaned up pretty well. Still a few little rough spots on this side, but it's very hard to get in to that gap between that 2 flat surfaces and the underside of the funnel or the filler. In real life, I think the Scammell logo fitted on there, but it doesn't come with the kit. And then at the top, if I get the light right, you can see there's a bit of a mark left. Now I've filled and sanded a couple of times, and if I start trying to remove that line, I'm going to distort the overall shape of the top. So I'm just going to leave it at that and call it done. So next up I'll give this a coat of primer again, and then top coat, and I'll do the rear panel at the same time. So there's a cutout here for one of the coolant lines from the engine, and there's another coolant line goes into that top part there. So I'll get this painted up next. Okay, so this is a radiator header and surround all painted up. The rear cover as well. And I gave the radiator a coat of, I think it was NATO black or tire black, I can't remember now. But what I'll do is, on the radiator now, I think I'll apply some pigments just to tone down the black. I had to play around in the back side just to see. So what I was thinking, or what I thought in the back, was to use the track rust, which is the dark pigment. just put it on kind of randomly. And I thought I would use some medium rust as well, just for a bit of variation. Also, what I'll do is I'll put some of this light sand just on the bottoms. Just on the base here. Okay, so with that dusted up a bit, we can put it into the frame. Okay, so I just pushed in from behind. I'll just put just a couple of dots of glue just to lock it in. And then with that, then we can now put in the back. Okay, and then we've got the back here. Oops. And it just snaps in as well. Just make sure the cutout here is lined up, because that's where the water hose from the engine goes. Or use it to lock it in. And then the top hose here fits in here, so it's just glue in there as well. And that's it. So I won't do any more to the surround or the header until it's fitted. Okay. Onto the fuel tank next, and it's actually quite a substantial piece. There's a bit of photo etch goes on here. However, the fuel filler neck fit between the two halves is pretty poor. I think it was Nigel who pointed that out in one of his videos. So I've glued this up and I've put in some milliput around there. So now it just leaves a fair bit of cleaning up. I don't know if it's supposed to be a seam here or not. Obviously not in this ends. But what I think I'll end up doing is just sanding it so the seam actually disappears all around. And then that section of the filler should actually disappear as well, because I'm guessing in real life the circular filler neck would just be welded round onto the tank. So it comes already moulded with the footsteps, which is a nice touch. So I'll go off and sand this up. Once I get rid of this really high step here, I'll reassess and I'll come back and see if we need to put in some more. I'll probably use sprue glue. So here's a fuel tank all glued up and cleaned up. So what we're doing is we'll get a coat of primer on it, and then we'll see if there's any of these seam lines going to show through and needing more work. So that's the fuel tank all primed up to check the seams. So on the ends, underside, and the other end, it's looking pretty good. The top looks pretty good as well, a faint line, but I'm just going to leave that. However, around the fuel filler cap, or filler neck, it was still quite rough, where I'd sanded down that really high area. So I've sanded it back again, and I'll just give it a little blow in with some more primer, and then see if that's it, acceptable now. I went and filled and sanded and scraped and tried to tidy up this area where the fuel filler goes into the tank. On the whole, I've got rid of most of it. The rest of the seams are fine. They've come out really well. Just this one area, again, get the light right, just on an angle there next to the base of the filler. That's, I'm calling it done. I've done it 2 times now. I've got the bulk of it out. I just can't get that last bit. And again, I don't want to go down too far, because then I'm going to lose the overall shape of the end piece. And I don't want to damage a filler, because I managed to keep away from that so far. So once it's painted up, I'll do some weathering and chipping around this area here where the stones from the front wheel have been coming in, some fuel spills, and then the cab actually sits over most of it anyway. So I think, look, it's acceptable for my abilities. So that's the fuel tank all sprayed up. I've added a photo etch filler cap. And on the side here, I think it's like a fuel level sight glass. So I've just put in some black and then a dab of make ultra glue to make it look like glass. So I'm assuming that's what it is. So what I thought I'd do now is, before I fit it on, because once it goes on, it's covered by the cap. So I thought I'd do a fair bit of chipping now, and just kind of have a think of what, where and how. So the way it sits in the chassis here, the front wheel will kick up stones and rocks onto this section here, which I'm guessing would suffer from chipping. The 2 footsteps, again with constant use, is going to chip the sharp edges and wear through and polish the metal on the 2 steps. So I'll do that first, and then I'm thinking I'll do some streaky grime and maybe some fuel spills. So let's try the chipping first. So using a bit of sponge that's been picked into like a random, well, I'm assuming random shape. I don't know yet. We'll try this and work just on the sections where we think it will be chipping. And then what I can do is I can go in with the brush and do specific areas on the footsteps and things. So using Ammo's chipping, let's see how we get on. So if we load the sponge and then get most of it off, try this. I'm going to concentrate on this half because the other side is doesn't see the wheels. And I'll do underneath on this bit as well. Don't overdo it. I can always go back in with the brush. And the sharp edges are going to get the bulk of it. Okay, so I might just leave it at that. So what I can do is some of the other ones I can use the brush to join together. And some of these corners. Trying to make them look as random as possible. I'll just highlight the corner a bit more. Emphasize that. Some of the sponge ones are a bit smudgy, so I'll see if I can sharpen them up a wee bit. So, just thinking about the steps, we're going to get people's sandy and muddy boots, and they're going to be chipping off on the edges. And then on this top edge here. I find it very difficult to kind of make the corners of the chips like quite sharp. You know, so to just random. Again, the top surface here is going to be quite worn. Might try doing some long scratches. I'll do it on the other side, just to, in case it's didn't look too good. That'll do, don't it? So that's the first chipping going on. And then some chipping on the steps and on the ends. What I might do is just polish or use gunmetal. I've got the polished metal, but I found the flakes, although it's like a brighter, shinier effect, I found the flakes in there are quite large. And sometimes it's very silvery, so I'll just try the gunmetal. Just polish the edges. What I might do is just general grime, streaking grime just where things protrude. You're going to get a build up, and then I'll do like an overall. I'll just concentrate on where the streaks would be. So you're going to get some around there and build up under here. I also put some I'll keep this area clear because I've got plans for the bit better. Just build the general streaking up a wee bit. I'm not getting the effect on the side there I was expecting. Let's just let's try again. Okay, I'll stop messing up with that for the time being. See how it dries out. I was wondering whether I should do some just dust on the top, and I might use the sand I wasn't going to use previously. Like I said, most of this section of the fuel tank won't be seen, only about that area. The rest of it's covered by the cab. Okay, that's enough. It's just to break the colour up a wee bit. So again, kind of overdoing it a bit, but I want to try the fuel stains. I'm thinking just to the top surface where there's spills. If we dilute this up to make it quite thin, and then just do a few splotches. That's maybe too thin. So I'll try it a wee bit. And then what we'll do is we'll come in with neat and just put in some. So I'm going to replicate a fuel spill down the filler. And it's spread out. And then it's kind of run down. I'm not sure the British Army would be so messy, especially a support vehicle. I'd imagine they would be pretty meticulous. Now, what I think I'll do is on this rusty bits, I'll just do like the light rust wash. And I'll use this heavily thinned, I think. Okay, I'm not so happy with the light rust wash there. I thought it would have been a bit more subtle. I keep trying to rework it, but it seems to have kind of fixed itself in place. Okay, let me tidy up and we'll come back and have a look, see what we think. Okay, so what do I think? It's a lot of techniques to do and products to use in one hit. But I guess being new, I want to try stuff out. You always run the risk of overdoing it. The sponge chipping and the paintbrush chipping, I'm happy with. Particularly the brush chipping, like on the sharp edges, even these scrapes and scratches look good. The polished metal we've used a few times now already, and that's okay. The streak and grime, I don't know if it's obvious. It depends how you get the light, you can see. That needs some work to get an overall effect. I think a concept, streaking where dirt will collect and get washed down is okay. It's just a case of an overall surface finish to achieve, because I'm not sure I achieved that yet. The fuel spills, I quite like the neat down here. Very easy to overdo it, of course. The top, I think, could have been a bit more thin and more randomly spread. It seemed a bit too, I don't know, too defined maybe. Of course I came back in with some neat and now I've got like a bullseye there, which I'll just leave. Like I said, the majority of this will be covered. And then the dust on the top was just to kind of break off from a nice surface, like, so I haven't done anything on the bottom, and it's just too neat. So the dust, look, it's probably quite overpowering as it stands right now, but I guess once it's on the whole vehicle, this is just one component, and the rest of the weathering is kind of unified into it, it shouldn't look too bad, hopefully.